Welcome back. The Pentagon is today publishing a report on whether UFOs actually exist, and if so, what are they?
To tell us more about what this report might tell us about UFOs, and if in fact there is life outside of Earth, is astronomer and astrobiologist at the University of Southern Queensland in Australia. John T. Horner, you're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. What time is it where you are at the moment?
It's not so bad as LA, which I know you've just had on. It's about 5:30. Yeah,
It's tea time.
Nice early evening chat.
Did you have a nice day?
Oh, it's been good. I've actually been on leave, so I've been lazing around the house, and we've got very Irish weather today. It's been cloudy and overcast and a little bit of drizzle.
Nice little touch of home there for you being a Yorkshire boy.
John T, we were just
Absolutely.
talking there about the Pentagon and why they've decided to push forward with further investigations into UFO. Why now? Why is this the right time, according to the Pentagon?
Well, it was all actually kick-started last year by Donald Trump, who wanted to put everything in the public domain and, tell all the stories that weren't being told. And appease his voter base, of course. And so he said, you've got all these files, we should make them public. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to release some of the videos and the images of blurry things that nobody can tell what they are, which is what UFOs are. They're things in the air that we don't know what they are.
So basically, we're going to get to see footage and we're going to get information that we've never seen before. So the question is, first of all, we're all excited to see what we're going to see, but what do you think it might answer? Like, is there life out there?
So that's a bit of a two-pronged thing for me. I'm certain that there is life elsewhere. I think it very unlikely that that life is coming here and checking what we had for dinner last night, in all honesty. I think what we're going to find is a lot of blurry things that are hard to explain, and they're really exciting to me as a scientist, because they're things we can't explain, and that's my bread and butter. We try and explain them. But the odds are it's going to be unidentified aerial phenomenon, optical illusions, things that are natural but we've not seen before. That's still really cool, but it's not quite as exciting as alien spaceships coming to say hi.
People have said before that there are far more sightings than have actually been recorded. And some of the sightings more recently have been recorded by jet pilots who have been flying out and about and seen objects flying in an erratic manner. They don't know what way they're going to turn and they can't explain what they are. So they would be considered credible sources. They've come back and documented what they've seen. They've even gotten footage. So how can you explain that away as a random object that might belong to any of us?
Well, if it was already explained, it wouldn't be an unidentified flying object. This has been a fairly heavy filter in that everything that can be explained won't be in this list. This is the last few that don't make any sense. But I saw a great article a while back by a guy who was an atmospheric physicist and a pilot. And he was talking about a previous set of videos they'd released. And he said, I totally get why the pilots couldn't figure this out, because they don't understand the physics of the atmosphere. And I don't totally get why most people, most atmospheric physicists, don't understand this, because they're not pilots. And you need both those skills to understand it.
You see, and so it's a topic. When we knew we were doing this today, we got very excited. Everybody's interested in the question, is there life out there?
Absolutely.
What part, John T, do you think Hollywood has played in this whole question? Because we've seen so many creations of potentials, of imaginings of what life might be out there. Have they a lot to answer for?
I don't think they've a lot to answer for. I think they inspire people, and that's a good thing. It's really good to get people excited about what's out there, report things that they see that is unusual. And either they learn what the thing they didn't understand was, and that's a good thing in and of itself, or we discover something new. And there are really good examples of both. If you go out and you get a clear night in the next few weeks, look out to the west after sunset and you'll see Venus, really bright like an aircraft coming in with its headlights on. Wow. Believe it or not, Venus is the single biggest source of UFO reports of any object in the sky. More than 50% of them are people seeing Venus, and it behaves oddly. If you're driving towards it, it just sits there in the sky, so it looks like it's running away from you at the same speed you're traveling. If you turn around and drive the other way, it feels like it's following you. It's not actually moving, but it feels like it's doing something odd, and it really trips you up.
John T, can we go back to something that you just mentioned earlier on? You're an extremely well-respected astronomer and an astrobiologist, and you said that you do believe there's life out there, apart from on Earth. Does that mean that we might ever have a chance of finding it, though? Because, of course, space is enormous.
It's one of the things that really excites me, actually. I think we've got a very real chance of being the generation that gets the answer to that question, are we alone? And I think that's really exciting. I think in terms of really local in the solar system, there is a very real chance we might find bacterial life, tiny single-celled life on Mars or on one of the moons of Jupiter or one of many places in the solar system. And that isn't aliens, it's not Spock or Yoda, but it shows us that we're not alone and that life is elsewhere if we find it. We're also at the point where we're finding thousands of planets around other stars, and that's some of the work I'm involved with. And in the next decade or two, we'll actually be able to search those planets for evidence of life and maybe find complex or simple life. And so we might know within our lifetimes.
When you mentioned Mars there, when you look, Jonty, at the amount of effort and money and time that it takes and is taking to get all the way out there and land a robot there to find bacteria. I mean, to the unwashed amongst us, including myself, it's not very sexy. It doesn't answer the question, well, hang on, we expected to see somebody in a little robot suit or something. I mean, given the technology that we have now, you know, how confident are you that we will hear or see something that we haven't found before?
Well, we're getting better all the time. I mean, some people say that we'll actually crack this when we send people to Mars, because if you send a geologist to Mars, they could do in one day the work that the rovers do in a year, because they know where to look, they could walk around. And so we're still at the beginning of that journey of exploration. And it's one of these situations where absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. If you find something, all well and good, but if you don't find something, all that says is you haven't found it yet. It doesn't mean it isn't there.
That's so true. Jonty, what about the prospect of finding intelligent and technologically advanced life? Not just talking about bacteria there. What do you think?
That's a really hard one because we only know of one example of that. And on Earth, we've only had communicative life, life that can broadcast out to the universe, for about 70 years out of 4,000 million years of life. So that's a tiny window. I think there's a chance. If I had to gamble on it, I'd actually think we'll find silicon life before we find carbon life. We're carbon-based life. But the spacecraft we send out into the universe are silicon-based. They've got computers on board. And the further we send them, the more autonomous they've got to be, the more, self-motivated they've got to be, essentially, to make their own decisions about what to look at, because we can't direct them when they're that far away. So it's a very small step to imagine that when we start sending spacecraft to other stars in the next century or so, they will be so autonomous you could consider them to be alive. They could be artificial intelligences. And if other technological civilizations do the same thing, you might find that we've got a galaxy of robots traveling out there, sending signals back home, and it's those robots we meet rather than the aliens themselves.
Wow, I mean, it is fascinating stuff, isn't it? Jonty, we're excited to see what comes out in this Pentagon report. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Queensland. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jonty.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
How cool is that?
I know, yeah, galaxy of robots.
Jonty thinks there's life out there.
Well, if he says it's true.
Well, I kind of tend to believe him.
I'm in.
He knows what he's talking about.
He certainly does.
Now, after the break, styles for a holiday at home. We're talking fashion next.